It began with a shove and a cruel laugh that sliced through the quiet of Buckingham Palace. "Move, old man!" the thug barked, his muddy boots scraping against the stone courtyard. The elderly veteran stumbled forward, clutching the row of medals pinned to his chest, symbols of honor that once meant safety, now glinting helplessly under a gray London sky. And before the crowd could even gasp, a single red-coated figure turned his head. A royal guard, still as stone until that moment. The morning had been peaceful, dignified. Tourists clustered around the gates, cameras ready, whispers respectful. Among them, Colonel Arthur Wells, 88 years old, stood proud in his navy blazer. His hand trembled slightly as he placed a small poppy at the base of the railing. Every year he came to honor his fallen comrades. His eyes were soft but distant, seeing not the palace before him, but the desert sands, the roar of engines, the faces of men who never returned. And then came Darren, a thick-shouldered man in a torn hoodie, swaggering through the crowd like he owned it. He'd been drinking, his words slurred with arrogance. "All this ceremony, for what? A bunch of old stories?" he muttered. No one answered, but Arthur turned his head, his voice calm yet commanding. "Those stories, son, are why you get to walk free today." Darren smirked, stepping closer. "Spare me the hero talk, Grandpa. You lot fought wars and look at the world now. Guess you didn't do that good a job." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Arthur stood his ground. "Maybe, but at least we stood for something." Darren's grin faded. He shoved Arthur's shoulder harder this time. "You're weak," he spat. "All of you old relics." And that's when the royal guard moved. Breaking centuries of tradition, the guard stepped out of formation. His rifle angled down but firm. His presence a wall of red and gold authority. "Step back," he said, voice like cold steel. Darren turned to him, puffing his chest. "Oh look, the Queen's statue talks." The guard's face didn't flinch. His eyes, barely visible under the bearskin hat, locked on Darren with a quiet intensity. "You will not touch him again." The air shifted. Even the wind seemed to stop. Darren laughed, loud and hollow. "Or what? You gonna poke me with that fancy stick?" The guard didn't answer. He simply took one step closer, calm, steady, unyielding. It wasn't aggression. It was authority. Darren's pride cracked. He swung his arm, a wide punch meant to intimidate. But in a blur of motion, the guard caught it midair. The crack of the sleeve fabric echoed like thunder. Darren's wrist was locked, his balance shattered, his knees bent under the pressure. The guard leaned in slightly, voice low enough that only Darren could hear. "Strength isn't how hard you hit. It's knowing when not to." He released the thug's arm, and Darren stumbled back, face red, breathing heavy, humiliated. The crowd stayed silent. Arthur, steadying himself, looked the man in the eye. "You called me weak," he said softly. "But weakness is running from the man you're supposed to become." For a moment, Darren didn't move. His face twitched. Anger, then confusion, then something else. A flicker of guilt. The guard turned back to his position, standing tall once again, as if nothing had happened. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. The video of the moment spread within hours. Royal Guard breaks protocol to protect veteran. Millions watched the clip, but what no one saw was what happened after. As the tourists dispersed, Darren remained, sitting alone on the palace steps. The words kept replaying in his mind. "Strength isn't how hard you hit." For the first time in years, he thought about his father, a soldier who died when Darren was a child. A man he'd spent his whole life resenting for leaving. Maybe that was where all this anger came from. He felt it then. Shame, deep and sharp. Slowly, he got up, walked to where Arthur's poppy still lay, and placed his own worn hoodie beside it. "Guess I've got some growing up to do," he muttered. And for the first time, Darren didn't feel weak. He felt human. 2 weeks later, a quiet letter arrived at a local veterans charity. Inside was a donation and signed, but with a note. "For the ones who stood when I couldn't." No one knew who sent it, but Arthur had a feeling. He smiled, folded the letter neatly, and whispered, "Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with guns, but with hearts." If this story moved you, hit subscribe and tell us your country below. Because real strength isn't loud. It's the courage to change in silence.